Welcome to Turku Saatanalle IX. This is the festival that, has been taken quite a few times, and always it's about extreme metal, black metal mostly. Talking about black metal, I'm talking about Finnish bands. One of the early birds is a band known as Crucifixion, the one that we have here today. There's a couple of reasons why you might not have heard this band. Maybe you're too young to grasp any kind of idea of Finnish history of black metal. And the other reason is, this is not the most active, not the most traditional Nordic style of black metal, but black metal band nonetheless. This band that started 30 years ago has been here playing tonight and released their latest release in 2021, late months or so. And now we have these two fine gentlemen who are not newbies nor young anymore to talk to you about some Finnish black metal, the early days and beyond. Let's welcome the gentlemen. Guys, please introduce yourself to the camera. Who the hell are you and by which name you go? Let's start with you.
I'm Forn and I've been singing and writing what I sing since 91, I guess. And this is Henrik, who's been playing bass guitar about the same time.
So you guys, you play black metal, but you're not exactly the typical Finnish style. And before I let you explain why, now people must understand that Finnish black metal has always been, since the early days, quite diverse, very, very different than the Norwegian and Swedish style. And you guys were there before the whole thing kind of exploded in Norway mostly, but other countries as well. What is the secret sauce or the secret ingredient to your music and your style?
Well, as you said, when we started, there wasn't a term for black metal at all, And by the time we played our first gig and started writing songs, the term black metal moved from being a Venom album title into being a term defining somehow music. And that's why our first flyers for our demo, Full of Fun of Flames, started saying that true Finnish black metal, not one of those new trend shits. It's kind of an obnoxious way to put things, but that's how we felt at the time. That black metal was already becoming trendy in 91, 92. Obviously, there wasn't even black metal in Norway besides Mayhem, and Darkthrone was moving into it, but for us it felt like it's getting trendy already.
When talking about those days, a lot of people obviously can name only a few bands from Finland, and they're mainly Beherit, Archgoat, Impel Nazarene, and that's about it. Barathrum came to the play a little bit later, but nonetheless, and then you were there, and that's pretty much the 5 bands that kind of gave birth to black metal. And you had to create those rules, how your sound was supposed to be and all that stuff. How did that happen? How was the birth of Finnish black metal, like you put it?
It was very much based on Bathory, Venom, Hellhammer, Celtic Frost, of course, and early Slayer. So there wasn't anything that sounded like what the Norwegian scene later on started to sound like. And we weren't involved in any of the things that the Norwegians were involved in. But when we started, Mayhem did committed his suicide. I went to Oslo in 92, took my stuff from Yrjus, and it didn't take much longer for him to die. But it must be understood that back in the day I was, for example, editing a fanzine called Fallen Pages. And we were already Impel Nazarene, Beherit, aforementioned bands. We were working on the Finnish style. It was based on Blasphemy, Sarcophago, Bathory, etc. And it didn't have. It had a basis in very primordial, if you wish, death metal or even thrash metal, because Sodom, the song Blasphemer by Sodom, has very much more influence and significance of Finnish black metal than anything done in Norway before or after that. Because when we, the bands you mentioned, started, there was only Mayhem only released Death Crush some years earlier, and there was always the Mysteries was in the works, but it seemed to never come out. So there wasn't the Norwegian style of black metal existing. You see, as one does, you guys have listened to Death Crush. It doesn't sound anything like the black metal that the Norwegians are famous for. And when the Norwegian death metal scene, that wasn't very, there was Cadaver maybe, but there wasn't anything else. When it started turning black metal after Dogfrog famously recorded Blaze in the Northern Sky. In the Son of the Horses, one of the best black metal songs ever. But we Finns felt like, what the fuck are Norwegians doing that? They're doing it after us, because we were, of course this doesn't have any meaning nowadays, but in Finland people have been using in the scene corpse paints for a couple of years. Beherit started it all, because of sarcophago from Brazil and the Ross Bay Cemetery scene. That's where the paints came from. And then the Norwegians started doing the same. And you're like, what the fuck? And then the older people watching this might remember the famous Finnish and Norway black metal scene classes, and in Belgium, the tall group Nords famously had this fuck Normay misspelling because of the French at Osmos Productions. There was this kind of mostly misunderstood and fabricated battle between the Finnish and the Norwegians. But at the time, we were the guys who had done it first, and the Norwegians started going all corpse painting and stuff like that. And for some reason, Östen and his younger friends started playing like they do, which is now the standard for black metal. But as you can hear when listening to black metal from the early days in Finland, it's not based upon anything that the Norwegians use.
It's very different, and this is something that nowadays youth maybe don't even understand, that it is a whole generation thing. Like the early 90s, or even, well, the start of the 90s was very, very different than what later on came to be as known as Norwegian or Nordic black metal. After all, Swedes started to do pretty much the same kind of thing when death metal was all kind of losing its edge, and suddenly something new thing needed to happen, and then there were arsons and stuff like that. And things started snowball. But you moved on, and you even abandoned black metal for a while, and you had another band, Promethean. And that is a whole new chapter, but also an important part of the whole history. So how come you ended up doing that and stopped doing what Black Crucifixion started?
It's funny because in Finland it seemed like everybody involved in the scene, by the time Norwegians started doing black metal, we all moved ahead. Many of the people watching this might know what Beherit did after that.
Synthesizer music?
Yeah. And kind of weird ambient stuff. We moved into progressive rock as much later people did in the post-black metal phase of things. But we started working because we had released a mini album with Black Crucifixion called Promethean Gift. And we felt like we've done this already. We want to move ahead. This was in '93, and we recorded in '92. And then everybody's heard this already. Let's move ahead. And then we started involving more acoustic instruments and going more progressive, but using the kind of texture that had been used in the 70s by the British, especially British progressive rock bands, which happened a lot later with many of the black metal bands. And then we did 2 albums, Gazing the Invisible and Somber Regards, with Promethean. It was basically him and me moving from Black Crucifixion. We didn't want to record those under the banner of Black Crucifixion, but we wanted to keep the connection, so we used the name Promethean, as in Promethean Gift, the video album. And even one song from Promethean Gift was also recorded for the Gazing the Invisible album by Black Crucifixion. And we did 2 albums, for avant-garde music from Italy. And whilst all the Norwegian black metal was happening, bands got very big. We were playing with flutes, we were playing with acoustic instruments, violins and cellos, doing the kind of post-black metal thing already in 94 and then finishing in 99. And then the Black Crucifixion thing that had morphed into Promethean, kind of later rest. But we had already started in 95 an album called with the Black Crucifixion music, the sound. We started an album called Forced and Dream. And in the early 90s we felt with Henrik that we wanted to start playing music again and finalize the album that had been in the works for 8 years. In 2006, Forced and Dream came out, finalized, and that's when the next period of Black Crucifixion started. And it's funny that we started the band in 91, and in 2006 we put out our first full-length album. We had just done a demo and a mini album in the early days. And 2006, Forced and Dream came out in Europe and in the States, and that's when the next phase of the band started.
Now this brings me to a rather weird question which just came to my mind as I was listening to you. There's a certain kind of pattern here. Archcode ceased to exist after a few years, the early days, and then came back with a storm. Beheaded suddenly, after doing a lot of synthesizer and ambient music, suddenly released Ingram album, which once again featured black metal. You abandoned black metal only to come back to it. Is there some kind of how to say, growing up thing to do, having this kind of a cycle formed, or is it just weird thing of coincidence?
What people might not kind of understand so well is that all of the classics of black metal, the albums, they were recorded by very, very young and impressionable people. And I don't know if we recorded any classics, but we were very young and impressive. And with all the only true black metal band, not one of these great big forces, it was of course being insecure about yourself. And then when you grow up and you find different levels of music and different aspects to music and being creative kind of songwriting types that we are, you want to express yourself in different ways. But then when you reach later stage in your life, like we did in the 2000s, you kind of start to realize which parts of the music are the songs that you write, and the way that you express them becomes less significant. And it's not about adding the flutes, and it's not about doing the strings there, and it's not about trying to do something that we very kind of artistically successfully did with Promethean. But it was a progressive rock band, but in a retro way. And then in the 2000s we realized that the songs that are in us can be expressed in more simple ways and more aggressive ways. There was a great review that praised Forced and Dream, but it called Forced and Dream, that came out in 2006, a punkier Promethean album. Which is a great way to say that it's going back to Black Crucifixion. And in 2009 we started playing shows like Black Crucifixion, and the kind of modern era of Black Crucifixion that has only been running for, what is now, 13 years, began. And in 2011 we reached the kind of mature age of 20 as a band, and we put out an album called Hope of Retaliation. New material and the old songs as live versions. And after that we released Coronation of King Darkness album, full-length album, and Lightless Violent Chaos, another full-length album. And then last year, when we reached the flagpole of 30 years, we put out Requiem, which is obviously 30 years in Latin. Because that was another album with another side of new songs, and again live material. For a band that has been running for over 30 years, we have amazingly little amount of material, unless you count the Promethean albums, as you obviously do. And it's a full catalog now.
The latest album you mentioned here is an interesting one. Like we had this talk before the actual interview, that it's half like new songs and half live. What made you to do this kind of a rather weird, unusual kind of a release?
When we reached the flagpole of 20 years, we thought that it would be nice to record new material and also the old songs in a way, because after 20 years you obviously have old songs. To record them with the new lineup and in a way that now we perform, like tonight we did here. And Hope of Retaliation turned out very nice. But it's of course a very difficult album to go to as a reviewer like yourself, or as somebody that doesn't know the band already, because it was designed for vinyl. One side new songs, one side oldies played in the new style of the band. But for us artistically, it was very rewarding. That's what we wanted to present. And then because after 10 years now that we reached 30, it was again that we want to do it again. We are not, a band like Black Crucifixion is not commercially viable in any way. We have the freedom that we don't need to buy hot dogs with the money that comes into band. We can buy plectrums. So it gives an enormous sense of artistic freedom, because we have other lives. We do different stuff for it. But when we do music for Black Crucifixion and we did for Promethean, it's music that the people who love the music can sincerely appreciate as music made only because it has to be made. Because Henrik and I, we are songwriters. And if it wasn't for Black Crucifixion, if it wasn't for Promethean, it would be for something else. It's material that needs to come out of us. We are artists in that sense. Because there is no option for us not to release those songs, not to release that music. It would come out anyway, in some sense. And we've been lucky enough, since we were very young, to have people want to listen to our music and put it out. And even people like you reviewing it, coming to the shows and saying, it's horrible.
Alright, talking about the nowadays version, I mean, everybody knows that once you get older, things start to change. People have families, people have career changes. One of the funny things, and funny being a relative term here, is that nowadays when you see people, like old school people of 50s and stuff like that, they might have doctor degrees, they might have engineer work professions and all that stuff. It's very different than being like 18 years old and like, okay, we're gonna play some really badass extreme metal. And things have obviously changed throughout the years. You have a different perspective in life, the way you see the lyrics and all that stuff. It's obviously different. Also, playing on stage is different. How do you think things have changed in this time? And I want to ask you first, because you haven't had time at all.
Yes,
how have things changed in these years?
Of course, we have been doing this for years, 20 years now, and when we done first black metal albums, I personally didn't think that things of black metal or death metal. And new bands in Finland, the underground, and we have Finnish and demonstrating, tape trading and that kind of thing. We didn't have any Spotify or YouTube. I didn't know anything about it. Only what we have in library, music library. I pick some albums and that kind of things I listen to them. And the black metal as a genre was one of every aspect of music. And I listen to lots of classic music, professional music, rock music, anything basically. And of course, when we were young, we were rebellious and we wanted to do something different and wanted to break some rules and that kind of against something. But if you in your 30s, you probably won't break anything anymore. You want to grow things and keep things. You have childs and families and everything like that. It's, the way you see the whole life, whole picture is totally different. But same thing when you write songs and songs that comes out of you, you have to put it somewhere in some kind of place. What is it's not so important now than it was earlier.
So do you have any kind of a song or lyrics that you would like that they didn't exist at all? Like any regrets, like I cannot sing that song anymore because of the lyrics or things like that. Do you have that at all? Or are you just...
I don't think, because of course there's something childish and that kind of thing. But it's when we were people we were. It was things that we thought.
Could we even describe it as a testimony of its current or more like past time, like how it was back in the days? So when you do songs, how that does happen, and let's not get overly boring here. Like, okay, then I pick my guitar, but more like what kind of
pick up guitars.
What kind of a process it is for you guys to give birth to a song?
No, first thing, and I'm not starting to make music. I'm not making the schedules that today I'm going to make music, because it doesn't work that way. Music comes somewhere in your mind. If you do something or feel something or there's something special things or you're just boring, then you hear songs and start singing them. It's kind of automatic. And when it comes, I pick maybe an iPhone and sing booming things, record. And after that, it's a kind of technical issue what kind of instrument should put there and kind of powering up drums and that kind of thing. But it's kind of automatic.
I think I know what you mean, because this is something that it seems like non-musical people cannot get, like how those songs and tunes and things come to your mind.
You just hear it.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been there, and sometimes I'm like, okay, where do I have the equipment to, put it out? Even though the guitar might not be present, but people who are like non-musical, and there are plenty, obviously maybe not in the audience, but still have no idea. But this is important to know, because it's something that seems to happen to a lot of people and it cannot be explained much better. But the next question is, you write lyrics. Do you write lyrics first before the song even exists, or do you write lyrics after the song is there, more or less finished?
Might be kind of pompous to say, but we have very, very good lyrics throughout the career of the band, and somehow, just Henrik described, most of the lyrics that I write, I don't write them, they just come, and then I have to write them down. Because when I work in my daily life, when I'm not formal, I have to come up with stuff, writing stuff and creating stuff, and that's what I do for my living. But when like Crucifixion songs appear, and Promethean songs, they just come out. This has been explained by people who create stuff for decades, for millennia, that they are a channel for stuff. And it's amazing that me being a non-native English guy and very, very pedestrian in the way I walk and talk in English, but when the songs come, they are stuff that people with proper education in native English universities appreciate. And that's something that we are very proud of, because there's been stuff that I later have to check out if it's already been used or created by somebody who can actually write stuff in English. It's channeling. There's a world of ideas. It's been since Aristophanes, and some people are equipped to channel those ideas. And for some reason we are lucky enough to be those people.
So if you need to sum up, because we don't have time to go through each individual set of lyrics here, but if you could sum up some of the basic concepts of Black Crucifixion lyrics to the audience, how would you describe them?
It's amazing when channeling them, one seems to kind of have a prognosis what is going to happen. And kind of, for example, our song Retaliation and a newer song called Personal Last Winter. At the moment when we are talking, the Russians attacking Ukraine is very, very topic of the moment. It might not be when people watch this video later, but it seems like singing those songs tonight was a kind of a... I already wrote these songs about this stuff happening again and again in different areas. And now, you asked earlier if there's stuff that I regret writing and singing. And vice versa, quite the opposite. I'm very proud. I was very proud tonight to sing those songs because they are stuff that amazingly, because of the channeling, it came from somewhere. I didn't write them. I just wrote it down, and I get to sing it at this age and time, and it fits perfectly. Stuff that is happening in the world right now. We are writing very socially conscious lyrics as we are Black Crucifixion, but fitting the world today. It amazes me personally again, saying those things.
Is there any single song that a member of audience right there who's watching the interview should start, diving into the world of Black Crucifixion?
I would go for Master Spirit, Retaliation, or Beyond Lingula from the new album. There's 3 songs. And anybody watching this will find them online.
Alright. Now there's one thing that I can't say bothered, but let's say bothered through the years when I've seen your albums, I've listened to them and reviewed them and seen your promotional pictures. Most often black metal bands are either some kind of opposing, whether it's in the woods or by some ruins or whatever, there's corpse paint and all that stuff. You do none of that, but instead of you kind of emphasize that we're a musical band and you're an artist, and by that I mean that you are very often seen like with a guitar in your hands, and the rest of the guys, well, not so much, but you seem to kind of emphasize that you're a guitarist. And you want to show that instead of, maybe having some inverted crosses or whatever. Why do you want to bring that thing like, hey, I'm a guitar player and I have this guitar right there, because it hasn't bothered me. What's the story?
Because he wants to be a guitarist.
I don't want to do the vocals, that's why I don't have a mic. But the guitar, man, yeah. She's my lover.
No, when we started taking promotional pictures in 91, yeah. We were standing at graveyards, we were doing the poses, we had the hood on. In 91, it wasn't a thing to do except for blasphemy and sarcophagus. We were doing what they were doing. And we were doing the fire parade. Many people who know Black Crucifixion know the iconic picture of me blowing out a hell of a firestorm. But we did that when we were very young. You can say that we were kids. And when we came back to nothing, when we started doing music again, we were... everybody had done everything there. The poses you mentioned. We, as you had so clearly recognized, that we want to emphasize that we're not fucking around. Listen to the songs, and we are the real deal. We are the shit. And if we would need to do poses, if we need to have long hair, like he obviously does, or be like you, kind of puffed up.
I don't know how that came out.
The bald and the beautiful.
Yeah.
But if there is a problem with that, you don't want to listen to Black Crucifixion. Because there's a certain kind of, he's a classically trained musician. I'm not, but it's a play. But we have the best songs and the best lyrics, and I'm very proud of that in the scene. You don't need to like the music, but we are real songwriters. As Roger Waters of Pink Floyd famously greatly said that if you're a songwriter, you can't help it. If you're not a songwriter, you can't help it either. And it's very much about the music. And if it requires to get back the blood that we did in '91 at Day of Darkness in Finland in Oulu at the Day of Darkness Festival, we are not your band. Because we are about the music, and are we true in black metal? Are we true in spirit? Go fuck yourself if you don't recognize it. Because it's easy to put on coat paint to bathe in fucking blood, like we did back in the day. But that's posing, as you say.
That's theatrics.
Exactly. We are not a show. We are music that is based on an actual ideology, that's based on thoughts, that's based on values. We are not your everyday guys sitting at the backstage and then going turn all infernal just for the show. We fucking mean the things that we say. And that's the thing do you regret? No fucking way.
So you're kind of a stripped to bare bones, and that's Black Crucifixion.
Basically, very much stripped to the bones, as you can see.
All right.
As I said earlier in this interview, we don't have. There isn't much kind of a demand for any bands to release new material. And we are songwriters. We release new material even if there isn't any demand for it. So, guys in our age, it's like 30 years in the past. There probably is 30 years in the future. But it's not something that we are scheduled for. And we're gonna do this thing and this thing. We've done a European tour. We've done plenty of gigs here in our home turf. Who knows, when people are watching this video with Russia doing their thing, we might all live in Norway and be Norwegian black metal people after all. Whatever. Let's see what the future brings.
All right. Last question to wrap up. You can both answer this, but let's start with you. If you get to choose one place you haven't played yet, but you would like to play, where would that be?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. That is a place you can find on Google Maps. What about you, Timo?
I think it would please Esa Henrik very much to play in Roadburn Festival, because always that's why we did Prometheus, bringing the music, the songwriting to a wider audience that might appreciate it is the kind of why we did the Prometheus thing, and why we've been so fucking obnoxious with the black metal, but yet not black metal, and the poses with the guitar instead of skulls.
So people there connected to Roadburn one way or another, take this as a hint. Book these great guys to your show and let the magic happen. Thank you for your time, guys. I hope that this has been as pleasing to you as it has been to me. And you guys over there, check out the songs Timo mentioned earlier and get to know their music, get to see them on stage. They are nice guys with some nice music and, mind you, not your ordinary black metal. So check it out and educate yourself. This is Rauta. Take care and goodbye. Semmosta. Kiitos. Kiitos, tää oli hauskaa. Vielä kerran.
Kiitos.
Kyllähän tässä olisi taas turissuutos, kun mä näen Arto villattelee 20 minuuttia. Voi vittu, eihän tässä nyt päästy kuvasta alkuun, mutta kyllä tässä oli aika paljon hyviä.
Jossain vaiheessa Arto lähtee pois, niin sä tiedät, että lopetat.